this purpose, this going, this leaving the garden, our purpose, our going, our doing, we've read is about relationship. And if it's not, then we're just busy, you know?
Hello, welcome back to the Kingdom Vision podcast. My name is Matt Parker, and we are back today for week 2. This week, I've got a guest with me. Well, he's not a guest. He's one of our co-hosts. What am I talking about? And I'll introduce him in just a minute and let him introduce himself, kind of tell you about his ministry and things like that. And then we're going to jump into today talking about the reason that God made us and put us into the garden. Last week we talked about sacred space. Last week we talked about God making this world where we could live in it together. But today we're going to kind of come back and not so much talk about where we are, but why we are. Why are we in that space? Why did he create that for us? And what does that do for us now? What we want to kind of really just dive into is this question of why did he put us there in the first place, and why would he even choose to involve us at all? One of the readings this week was David talking about as he looked up into the stars, and he was just like, why would you even consider us to make us a part, of what you're doing? Not so much that he thought we were insignificant by ourselves, but just in comparison. Like, I mean, have you ever looked at something majestic or something you're involved in, you're like, I can't believe this is happening to me. This is amazing. That's what I did when I got married. I was like, she started walking down the aisle and I was like, are you serious right now? I get to be a part of this. This is awesome. Multiply that by a million, millions, billions. And that's kind of the thoughts David had. But what I also want to kind of dive into as we talk is not only why is it that God made us? Why didn't he just leave things with his heavenly host? And how does this matter to how we live right now? We started out the week in Psalm 8, again, where David's looking up. But what it really does for us in Psalm 8 is highlights that creation was not just happenstance, that there was some real intentionality. And then that's kind of the answer to David's question is it doesn't make sense to us that God would include us, but it was an extremely intentional plan. And that's kind of one of the things we want to talk about a little bit on the podcast today. And what David tells us is that we're crowned with glory. We are crowned with honor, entrusted with this responsibility, real authority, not for us to exploit, not to dominate, but to steward and care. And we're going to just kind of, Bruce and I are going to get in here and talk about that. But I wanted to just get out here and say that Eden was never meant to be our finish line. And, that was where he started it. The mandate was to go and to take that beauty and that goodness and that order out throughout the world. And we see that as we get into the New Testament, where salvation is not our finish line. It's our beginning point where we take his kingdom rule out to the earth, just like Adam and Eve did. And God made us for intimacy. He made us for love and for flourishing and for blessing. And, we have to remember that that's why he did it. We talked about Psalm 139, and we'll revisit this in a minute, that God didn't just mass produce us. I saw a video the other day of some these humanoid robots that are getting produced out there, and they're kind of funny to watch, but they all look the same. They all function the same. Yeah, they have different programming here and there, but they're basically the same unit. That's not how God made humanity. It says in Psalm 139 that he knit us together, and we'll talk more about that as we go. But then as the week progressed, we jumped into Matthew 5, talking about salt and light, and how now do we bring this thing that God created us into out into the world that we live in right now. We don't live in Eden. We live in a broken, busted up, fallen world, but our mandate's still the same. Our mandate's been redeemed, and we still have this work to do. And in this kind of quiet, humble, obedient, and unmistakable way, that's how God's told us to advance the kingdom. We're not here to coerce people. We're not here to beat them about the head and shoulders. We're just to get out there and do what he had originally created all of us to do. So the big question for this week, and I'll bring Bruce on, let him talk a little bit about himself, is whether or not you and I are living with purpose. I think a lot of people live like we're just here. And that's not what God intended. I want to know, and you guys chime into the chat, chime into the comments. Bruce, listen to you and I talk about, what is this, and what's in the way of us living with this purpose that God has given us. One of the phrases I use in one of the devotionals was, are we living like someone who's waiting or like someone who's been sent? And so that's what we're going to jump into. And but before we do that, I'm going to ask Bruce to just go ahead and start talking and introduce yourself, Bruce. Talk about Baxter Baptist Church, where you are ministering, and kind of what brought you to the Crucibles Fire and the Kingdom Vision podcast, and why you're here with us.
All right. I love talking about myself. Uh, um, we started when in street ministry, when the Lord got a hold of me. We started in street ministry, moved through a couple of churches, and then at some point along the way, the Lord really got a hold of me. And I think it was Francis Chan, the first one I heard say, "Hey, if we had never seen what church looks like, and the only model we had was our Bible, and we had no predetermined understanding of what we should do, right? And we only
Right.
used Jesus as a model. What would it look like?" And that's kind of what we're trying to do over at Baxter Baptist, little country church on 175, heading out of Athens East. And we're just trying to be followers and disciples, and we really want to just it's our heart that we just sit at the feet of the master and learn from him. And as
Amen.
far as how we came together, the TCF thing, I've known Matt forever and a day. And uh, I tell people all the time that I was saved when I was 17, but I was in my 30s whenever the Lord really started drawing me. And Matt was a part of that in a home group we were doing. So that's how we got where we are. And I'm super excited about the Word of God and where we are in the Word of God this week.
Bruce, as you were studying this week, and as we studied about purpose and why God brought us, was there anything that really just jumped out at you in our reading that you wanted to share off the top?
Oh yeah, I tried to refrain from just burping it out when you were talking a while ago. I guess it's just never really registered in my head that in the garden, and there was the fall, and from the fall we were kicked out of the garden, and then we went out and we had to farm and all that good stuff. It's never really, I don't know why. I guess I'm just kind of dense, I guess. It never dawned on me that in our reading this week, we were supposed to go and subdue the earth before the fall, before anything. That's why we were created. And I never really got that before. Is I've always had this picture of leaving the garden was a punishment, and it was, but it was also our purpose was to subdue the earth.
I was talking with someone else about that, because you're right. We always view getting kicked out of the garden as the punishment, but really leaving the garden was always the plan, or at least his progeny leaving. Whether or not Adam and Eve would have gotten to stay is not real clear. I mean, maybe they would have, but it wasn't so much the leaving as it was the inability to return.
Right.
And then
That's
the
good.
work. We were always supposed to work. We were
Yes.
always supposed to subdue, like you said, but it was the fact that now it's going to be tough.
Well,
and the
I think
land's going to
what you just
fight us
said is
back.
what you just said is the crusp of it is it's not that we weren't supposed to leave. It's just now we can't return. Yeah, that's a
Exactly.
good way to say it.
Well, and as I was reading through this, it's so many people in our culture right now in our world, they're just aimless. They don't have anywhere that they feel like they're going. They don't. Uh, you ask them what are they going to do, and what's your plan in 5 years. I'm not saying everybody has to have a long-term plan or anything like that, because God will take your plans and toss them in the air and and
Right.
and and destroy them if
Yeah.
you are worried about them. But I find people not thinking about the fact that we're not just here to be saved and then evacuated.
Yes, sir.
And there seems to be kind of this thought in modern evangelicalism that we're just, the power of the Spirit really is only there to keep us from falling until he finally gets here. And then, but we've got things to do. That mandate's never changed to spread that rule. One of the questions I asked in my notes was, why does this even matter? And how do we take that mandate and how do we translate that into a random Tuesday? Uh, Bruce, what are some things that you've been able to do in your life and how you've seen this work, this mandate to take the kingdom rule, the peace that is the garden, and take it out into the world? I mean, how are you doing that every day?
Oh my goodness. It's really part of our reading you mentioned a while ago was in Matthew 5, and it's really kind of uh it's pretty simplistic. I think there's a little kid song that we learned in Sunday school, this little light of mine, right?
Right,
Well, we see that in Matthew 5. You are the light of the world, and we were created to live in such a manner that we are supposed to draw to the light. And
right,
so, you know what? That means that at work, uh, I'm supposed to be the positive guy in the room, right? When I'm
right.
out and about and I'm doing business, I'm supposed to be the guy that people are like, that guy looks like he has a secret. He's awful happy about being alive today, right? I'm
Yeah,
supposed to be the guy that and this happened to me last week. There's a gentleman I work with. He's crazy intelligent, super smart guy, but not the most loving, personable guy you would, run across. And we were getting ready to go home for the holidays. And dude just walked up and it was like a sideways hug, you know what I mean? But
right.
he initiated it because I think it's because of the light that the Lord gives me, and people. It's kind of a joke. If you get around me, you're going to get a hug, right? And
Right.
this guy initiated it as uncomfortable as it was. It was still we. I had made the space through the light of Christ shining out of me. I'd made the space comfortable enough that he could go out on the limb a little bit.
I'm guessing he's not a hugger kind of guy to begin
He
with.
is not.
Right. You get my wife's not a hugger.
Right.
Tammy's
Right.
not a hugger, and you can always see when somebody who is a hugger, and you can just kind of see this body stiffen, like
Right.
this
Right.
is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of,
But
that's
it's
the crust of all of this is, it's relationship, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think one of the things too, we can get so focused on. This is a double-edged sword. I don't want to counteract what the lessons are about this week, but we can flip this because we're humans and we're dumb, and we can take the understanding that we're built with purpose and forget that the basis of the purpose is the relationship.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then we get hyper focused on the function and the purpose, and we can serve ourselves right out of our faith sometimes. I mean,
Oh, come on.
we get so busy working for God, we've forgotten that he just wants us to be with him. And that was the original. Last week we talked about the whole purpose was communion. And that was the predicate. I mean, that's where it starts. And yes, there's work to be done, but we can't forget, the communion. And one of the things that struck me, and I wrote about this in one of the weeks, is in Psalm 139. It talks about we are knit together in
Yes.
the womb. And, you know, we deal with this all the time. We're dealing with Brenna and people, you know, what happened, what went wrong in the womb. And we actually went through a lot of testing when she was born, trying to figure out, was there a genetic mutation? Was there an outside force? And everything came up empty. There was no cause. I mean, it just happened. And we used to put that verse over her incubator in the hospital, and doctors would come in and read it, and you could see some of them. We knew some of them were atheists, and they would sit there and read it and kind of look at us and look at it, and they would never say anything. But after about 3 weeks, we were in there 6 weeks, we started getting questions from them. I remember one particular neonatologist said, she pointed and said, do you really believe that? And I'm like, I do. I don't think she's broken. I don't think she's, according to that verse, she's got problems and she suffers, but he knit her together. And either the verse is not true or he just really wasn't able to fix it. And I just choose to believe that the verse is true and that she's exactly like he wanted her to be.
Yeah. And I would love to point out along those lines that if you guys are following us and you're following along, you know, please do your reading, please, because I can't even begin in our little time schedule to elaborate on what Matt just said from Psalm 139, because I just
It's
have to sit here and read the whole chapter and then do it again and again and again. Where can I go to escape your spirit? It talks about, you know, where can I go? And everything, this purpose, this going, this leaving the garden, our purpose, our going, our doing, we've read is about relationship. Our
mhm.
going and doing should be bringing other people into relationship. And if it's not, then we're just busy, you know?
That's really good, Bruce. I mean, it's one thing to be busy for the Lord, um, but if that becomes our idol, then it just becomes an idol.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can worship anything, and He doesn't want us to worship our service. There's an end and a method to the madness, which is to share His rule, His grace, His mercy, and to take it into the dark world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I honestly feel sorry for those who I I feel sorry for the people who don't understand that they have such purpose now. That they think that their purpose is just to go be with Jesus. That's more like the end perk. You know, and the question that we asked this week is, are you living your life every day as somebody who's just waiting for something to happen? Or are you living your life like somebody who's been sent on a mission?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
As
one of the things
we
I've
were,
loved about doing ministry with Bruce is every day is a mission. Every encounter, every gas station stop, every waitress, every clerk at the store, every person we cross on the street. You know, Bruce, you're one of the ones that really tuned me into what that looked like out in life. I got a lot of history in the formal ministry, but hanging out with you, you're the one that actually taught me the power when somebody says, "Hey, I need you to pray with me about something," to just stop and pray. And that's been one of the most impactful parts of my walk in ministry with the Lord. And it's not formal ministry. It's random Pizza Hut. It's uh, just somebody at the grocery store. You can tell they're having a bad day. That's salt and light. That's the purpose. That's the mission. And I just wanted to bring some focus today. I mean, we're kind of out of time. Need to wrap up today, but I wanted to bring focus to the fact that, folks, we have not been saved just to wait for rescue. We've been rescued to teach others how they can be rescued.
that's
And
right.
we've got a mission. Bruce, you got any final thoughts before we wrap up for today?
No, along the way in that rescue mission, we get bumps and bruises, and we fall down and that sort of thing. And I want to read just a short, tiny piece. I'm doing a devotional, uh, also experiencing God,
Boy,
and
it's good.
he does not ask us to make a resolution to try harder. Rather, he takes us aside and asks us to reaffirm our love for him. That's
Man,
what
that's
what
good.
the whole purpose is, right? Is he's in love with us? Are we in love with him? And if we are, there's some movement that goes with that.
Right. Everybody's debating. I saw two guys this morning on Facebook or something debating about, works versus grace and blah, blah, blah. And I remember just sitting there thinking of like, I know people who have encountered church and never been changed. I've never met anybody who encountered Jesus and walked away the same. And so if you are in a religious experience or whatever you're in and it's not changing you, you haven't met Jesus yet. Because I've yet to find any person in my experience or anyone in the scriptures that encountered him in truth and in spirit and didn't walk away changed.
Amen.
Sometimes we were resistant and it may take us a little time, but he changes things. He changes things. Guys, we appreciate you being with us today on the Kingdom Vision podcast. I want to reiterate what Bruce just said. I want you to keep doing your readings if you're following along. If you're not following along, pick up. We only do 5 readings a week. That's Monday through Friday. It leaves you Saturday and Sunday to get caught up. If you get behind, they're short. Some of the reading passages this week were just 2 or 3 verses. And so you can get caught up in a Saturday over a weekend and get back on with us. I want to invite you to go down to the cruciblesfire.org app, download that, follow the blog in there, and follow us on Facebook. Head over to Baxter Baptist Church's Facebook page, give them a like and a follow. There's some incredible and exciting things going on over there with Bruce and that ministry. Also, you can go over to the Crucibles Fire Facebook page, YouTube. We're on Spotify, all over the place. We're trying to just spread this message as far as we can, that we're not just here to wait, that we have purpose, and we're here to try to help you see the world through God's eyes as we develop your kingdom vision. Bruce, I appreciate you taking some time out of your New Year's Day today to record this with me. And in your backyard, I do like your backdrop there. That's awesome. Is that your spot?
This is my spot.
It's going to be your spot. That's great. And so we're trying some new stuff. If you're out there following the podcast, trying to where we can just make sure we get these things done when we can't all be together in the same space. Send us a message, comment in the comments, send us an email, go out to our website. We'd love to pray for you and pray with you, and help you in any way that we can. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the flip side next time.